Good morning. Welcome to Virtual Active Users Groups from 12.3. Today's topic is database maintenance and a little bit about the user list. Hopefully it'll work better than last week. That was a lesson. We'll make that one up. Thanks for your patience on that one. Hopefully you can all see my screen. I'm going to mute everybody, so please use the chat window if you need to ask a question or if you have any problems technically. Okay, I'm unmuted. Sorry, I just muted myself. Today we're going to use the ACT demo database. Hopefully you can see it on my second screen here. And today's topic is database maintenance. Mostly on the technical back-end side. We can talk about techniques to clean up bad data if we get time, but mostly this is kind of the plumbing stuff. When ACT started out, it was a DBase product, and DBase technology is old history now, but DBase needed a lot of maintenance, something called a pack and rebuild. You can think of a database, it's shared by many people, so it's kind of a database or a record in the database is kind of like a library book, and people check it out, work on it, and put it back, and the database keeps track of who has a file open or a record open at any given time. Sometimes the library book gets put back in with a page missing, or say a machine crashes while it had a file open, things like that. So you used to have to pack and rebuild a lot. SQL is such a good backend, which is what ACT is on now, Microsoft SQL Server, that you almost don't have to maintain it ever, but you still do once in a while. Almost enough you can forget about it, but don't. And that's the topic of today's discussion. So first thing I'll show you how to do is if you log into ACT and you go to Tools, about a third of the way down it says Database Maintenance, and the first entry is Check and Repair. So this will actually go into the database. It looks for something in SQL called torn pages. It'll also possibly do a reindex. This Check and Repair is actually kind of a light touch. You can do this while other people are still logged into the system. Don't always recommend it, but it won't kick everybody out. Some techniques I'm going to show you later go a little bit deeper and do need to kick everybody out. So I'm going to go to Database Maintenance, Check and Repair, and you may not be able to do this. This is sometimes something only administrators can do, or the ability's been taken away. But I'll click on it, and you'll see it does a integrity check. Checks your databases for errors and repairs any that are found, and it also does a reindex. That reorders your records. So there's these things called indexes. They're like alphabetizing, but it indexes on many things, not just last name like a phone book. So it rebuilds many indexes. And this can take a little bit of time depending on the size of your database or the speed of your computer. The demo database in ACT is only a few hundred records, so this goes pretty quick. And you can kind of see right now it's doing an integrity check. Now, it's not just checking the contact records. There's also a lot of histories. For instance, this one record I'm on in ACT right now has 427 activities. I'm sure the histories, there's probably a couple thousand of them. So some of the tables are very large. And, you think your database isn't big, but if you have a lot of activity with people, then your history file is big, or your calendar file is big. So it's really hard to say how long it takes. Now it's doing the reindexing, so we're almost done, actually. This is something I would say most people should do this once a month. And you'll get two messages here when it's done. This one says it completed successfully. There are times when you may get a message that says we found some really bad things and we need to go to the next level kind of message. Sometimes you want to make a backup first just in case this process can't fix it and really messes things up. But that was Check and Repair. So The next thing I'm going to show you is the deeper stuff. Now, this should only be done by administrators, and it needs to be done on the machine, the server that is hosting your data. If you're a one-person user, that's your machine. But if you're on a network, it's usually the server, the central machine. I'm going to go down to Windows here and type in ActDiag, A-C-T-D-I-A-G. That's a program that gets installed with every Act. It's this little toolbox. Stands obviously for Act Diagnostics. So click on it. Normally you get a warning. I've turned the warning off, but the warning says you really need to know what you're doing if you're going to go in here. This is a repair kit for the big boys. So there's some server information here. Tells me the version of SQL I'm running. If I go over here to databases, this will give me a list of all the databases I have. Again, in ACT, I can have multiple databases, and I do. Got a database called OOPS. I don't know what that is. Here's my ACT 2015 demo. And you can see it's only 38 gigs in size, whereas this U.S. Energy one is 38 megs. This is 4 gigs. This one would take a long time to maintain. But the ACT 2015 demo is the one I'm in right now. It's named right up here, ACT 2015 demo. And what I can do is right-click on it, and there's all kinds of things here. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I'm going to show you the big ones. So the first one says check database. So unlike the other one that said check and repair, this one just does a check, but it's a deeper check. Actually warns me that it's going to disconnect the database from other users. So it puts the database in single user mode. It's going to kick everyone else out because it's kind of doing a deeper check. So I'll say yes, and it's actually, I can't use, but it's done. This is a more powerful tool. So that was a check. Next, I'll come down under check. There is the next one is re-index the database, which was the second half of what we did before, re-index. So we'll do that again. Says it's going to kick everybody out. Can take a little while. So I'm going to say yes and do that. Again, it did say it could take a little while, so this is where I normally tell jokes. I don't have any today. It's early. Oh, it's done. Thank God. Next is repair database. This will actually look for what are called torn pages and broken links, and it will fix them. And again, it's going to kick everybody out. So this shouldn't take too long because we don't have anything to repair. By the way, the something called the ACT scheduler, which does backups every night. If I set up your ACT, I use the ACT scheduler to do light maintenance every Sunday. That's a habit I have. So I can show you if I have the scheduler on here, and I don't because I don't really keep a lot of data on here. Okay, so the repair happened. So this is something maybe you do once a year. If you have a very large system, 50 users, and you have millions of records, more often, small systems, we did a check, we did a reindex, we did a repair. Way down at the bottom here is a database rebuild. This you definitely want to make a backup first, and you probably really ought to call us. This is when something's horribly broken. And there's a thing called Rebuild ACT Metadata. It kind of rebuilds ACT from the ground up. I'm going to do it because it's a demo database. And it says right here, recommended that a database backup be done first. If this dies halfway through, you're in a lot of trouble. But we'll do a metadata rebuild just to show you it's not that scary. It's done. Thank God for small databases. So this database has really been cleaned up and checked out. Again, I use the ACT Diagnostics tool. And quite often you'll see on these large databases here, you'll see the size shrink. This was 38, oh, it went to 40, believe it or not. It went up. But sometimes the reorganizing process cleans up a lot of empty spaces. And in this case, it must have rebuilt a couple extra indexes or something. It went up, actually. So that is the pack and rebuild. The next feature I want to talk about is cleaning up old users. And I might go to my database, but I won't. Let's see what we have here. I'm going to go to Tools, Manage Users. This is something you need to be an administrator to get to, but this is a list of all the users in your system. And of course, this is the Act demo, so most of these users are inactive. Let me just talk about user status here. I'm logged in as a person named Chris Huffman. He's active. He's taking the license. But you see Allison McCullough here. She is inactive. She's not taking a license. I'm going to click on her, and I'm just going to go a couple right here. There's active and inactive. Now, normally what you do with inactive people is when they leave the company, you could just delete them. But Act has a bizarre way of handling things. If I delete Allison, well, you know what? Let's do it. I'm going to go back to the list here. I'm not going to really delete her, but here's Allison. I can delete her. Just get her out of the system. What's going to happen is that any data belonging to her will be deleted. That's private data. But other work she did will get reassigned. It's really weird. So let's say if I go, let me just get out of here and go to the history record for Chris Huffman here. Okay, see, here's a history record that Juliet did. She did a meeting back in September of 2014. So, and then there's somebody here named Ernst. So they've logged things in the system. If I delete Ernst as a user, it wants to actually either delete these phone calls or it wants to reassign them to somebody else, like me. But it wasn't me that made the call. You might want to keep, for historical purposes, you might want to keep the fact that Ernst was at this meeting, even though he no longer works for you and you want to get his license back. So if I come over here to Tools, Manage Users, I highlight Ernst and I delete him, and it says you want to remove him, and I say yes. Now it says you are about to delete Ernst. To retain records belonging to him, I must reassign them to another user. So if I reassign him to Chris, me, the word Ernst actually disappears off of here, and it says Chris was at this meeting, and that's not true. So I have a lot of clients. They go, you know what, I want to keep the fact that Ernst was at this meeting and he made this call. So what you do instead is you make him inactive. Or I could just delete everything they ever did, but now you're going to lose all that activity. So I'm not real happy with the way ACT does this, but they don't want things belonging to people who aren't in the user list. The user list has to be kept. So what you can do instead is we can go to Ernst and we can make him inactive. And that means you get your license back. He can't log in anymore, but all of his history stays as Ernst. He's still a user on the system. He's just an inactive user. The problem with that is that let me just go back here, pretend you didn't see that. He's on the user list, and so when I go to things like schedule a call, and I schedule in my user list, Ernst is in here, even though he's inactive, and Allison is in here, and she's inactive. And this list, for some of my clients, can get very long. It's full of people who are kind of dead, not there anymore. And why should you muddle through this list of all these people who haven't been there for years? So in Act v17, they made it a little bit easier to go to Tools, Manage Users. There's a checkbox here that says, hide my inactive users. I don't, why see them on the drop-downs? Because they're not active anymore. So this is something that only, I believe, came in v17. Maybe it was v16, but I believe it was v17. So it's a relatively new feature. If I hit close and I go to, this contact access here and I set the record manager, well, that's for me. I can't change let me go to Computer Trade Associate. I only see the active users. Ernst and Allison are off this list now. And if I schedule a phone call, only my active users show up here. So I now tell people, when someone leaves the company, you want to get their license back, You used to have to make a decision whether or not to delete them or make them inactive. But in this case, you see most of the people in here are inactives. The list gets kind of very long. I've seen this list be hundreds of people long. Now you can hide the inactives. So you have a couple choices to make. You definitely want to make them inactive. You get the license back. You could delete them if you want, but all the things they did got to be assigned to somebody else. And that gets to be, that can be messy too, or confusing, because it'll say Sarah made a phone call back in 2006 when she didn't even work here, but it's because all that stuff got reassigned. So that's keeping the user list clean. The hide inactive helps a lot. Does anybody have any questions about that or database maintenance? Okay, couple more tips for keeping your database clean. Couple of things. One is the dirtiest records or the fullest records tend to be the user records in ACT. In other words, I'm logged into this database as Chris Huffman, and when I go to look up my record, this is the Chris Huffman record. In the histories, I only have 113 histories. But in the tasks here, the activities, I have 427. And some of these are quite old. I never completed them. There's a demo database, but you guys get the idea. This is probably true of every one of us on this call, where we had some things we never completed, and they're from years ago, and they're still on our records. Now, the thing about ACT is when you log in, the first record it brings up is you, and you are like the fattest guy in the database, and I mean in a record sense. So I'm logged in here as Chris Huffman. It wants to bring up my record, and the first thing it's got to do is bring up these 427 activities and these 113 histories. So I tell people to keep their records clean. And one thing I can do, like I'll just show you, I'll create a junk record here. So here's a new guy named Scott Towell, and he works at Spamco. So I created this record. I'll save it, and now I will look Scott up here, and I will delete him. Contacts, delete the contact. So now he's gone. And one of the things that happened, if I go back to my record, is it put the fact that I deleted Scott Towell in my record. And so if I were to delete 1,000 records out of the database, let's say I'm working Friday because I don't want to shop on Black Friday, and I decide to go in and clean out 1,000 people, I'm going to have 1,000 records in my record, history records in my contact record, that says so-and-so was deleted, so-and-so was deleted, so-and-so was deleted. And again, this can fill up. I've seen people have 30,000 records in their histories. So one of the things you could do here is go to your record and actually turn off everything except, I'm looking at the history types. I can filter out history types. And I just want to see under system changes, contact changes, there's a thing called contact deleted. So I'm telling it, just show me the deleted contacts. And look, there's 15 of them. Some of them are from 2014. I bet you with some of you, they're from 5 years ago. And so what I can do is highlight them all, hit the delete key, and they're gone. If I go back to showing me all types of history here, I'm down to 99 history records. So I've cleaned up some. You may not care that someone was deleted. The other thing that's kind of interesting is if you wonder that somebody was mistakenly deleted out of the database, we can go to all the different user records, and a record of it is in their history. So it kind of leaves fingerprints that I deleted Scott Towell, and of course I just deleted the fact that I deleted Scott Towell. But quite often people ask me, why is data missing, and I go finding it in people's history records. Okay, so if you do huge data dumps, like say you delete 5,000 records or you import 5,000 records, you do huge changes to the database, that's when it's a good time to go to do your check and repair. So I only deleted 15 records, but whenever you do big stuff like that, you will get a performance improvement. It cleans up space, and it will fix broken stuff. So you can either clean up your user list, or you can hide inactive users, clean up your database, clean out your junk. And that is the topic of today's session. I'm going to take questions, but while I do that, I'm going to log into my production database so we can talk about next week. So if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat window now, since I have you all muted. Because I just told you all to keep your My Records clean, and you'll see how long mine takes to load up now. And we have fast equipment here, relatively fast. Now, there it is. So I go to Geoff's history record here, and I have 4,687 histories. So I need to clean out my own stuff. But we have fast equipment here. How do you back up a database? Judy asked a good question. Since I told you to make backups before you do heavy work like this. The easiest way is to go to File, Backup, Backup Database. And they'll ask you where you want to put it, and then include the attachments, unless you have a bazillion of them. But this will actually bundle up all of ACT, data and documents and layouts and reports and templates into one zip file. And you just say, okay, this database would take a little while. But making a backup is pretty simple. Okay, so next week's subject. By the way, have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Oh, we're going to talk about opportunity management, one of my favorites. So if no one has any other questions, I will wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I'll get on to my next appointment here. And we will talk about opportunities next week. That's a feature that I really like in ACT, and I think ACT does a good job of executing it. It's underused by most of my clients, in my estimation. I show it to people, they get excited, and then I show it to them again, and nothing's changed. So hold on here. Okay, should you always make a company file before an individual file? Well, that's up to you. Some people don't use companies at all. Judy asked another question. Should you always make a company record before an individual record? So I got some people, when they're on a contact here, like I'm on Megan McDonald here, I could put her in first, and then under contacts, I can create a company from this contact, except that I can't. Why not? That's odd. Oh, you know what? Because there is no company. That's why. Let me go to this guy here, 5 links. I can create a company right from his record, but if I'm on a company here, say I'm on AccuCoat, I can go up to companies and say create a contact from the company. So you can do it either way. Some people don't even use companies. They just use ACT the old way. Way back in the day, ACT was just a contact database only. They added companies, and with that became complexity. There's also a feature at ACT. I'll just talk about it because we have 2 minutes. If I go to my preferences, this is kind of a scary feature. I don't tell people a lot about it. But in the admin section, under companies, I can actually automatically create a new company when X number of contacts have the same name. So I could set that to 2, and the minute I have 2 people with the same company name, it will automatically create a company record and put those 2 people in the company. You're a little concerned about what if the company name is blank, or what if the company name is personal or something like that. So this is a feature that when they rolled it out, it had a few bugs, and so I backed off it, and I just haven't dug into it a lot since then. But 0 here means turn the feature off, which is what I have set. But if you want to keep companies, you could just set this to 1, and that means every time you create a contact, a company automatically gets created because you've met the 1 user limit. Okay, everybody. Wish you a happy Thanksgiving. See you next week. Stay warm. We'll talk about opportunities. Bye.